One of my most asked questions is, Dain, is there anything that you wish you did during your time in Australia? And honestly, there is so many things that I did wrong that I want to share with you in this video. I don't like to have regrets. I'm not going to call them regrets. We're just calling it regrets for the sake of the video. These are things that I would have done differently. For context, I'm a British person. I've done 2 working holiday visas and I've traveled Australia extensively. You can just have a look at my YouTube channel and see I've been to many places, and there are some things that I would do very differently. I'm currently in a little cabin, if you can't see. It is cold. It's winter right now in Australia, so I've brought my little cup of tea. I've got a peppermint tea. Who's that from? Twinings. Best tea ever. So yeah, I've made a list on my phone. I'm just going to talk about things that I would do differently, and hopefully you can learn a thing or two from things that I would do differently. We're going to start off with number 1, which is I wish I took things slower on the East Coast. So I came to Australia back in 2020. I had 6 weeks. I spent 4 of those weeks traveling from Cairns down to Sydney. Now I did it very fast and I booked it through Happy Travels and they were amazing. They put together like an itinerary and everything. So I had something to go with. And it was very easy for me because I was like, I don't know where to go in Australia. I don't know where the good places to stay. I was doing a big world trip and I was like, I just want someone else to plan it for me. What I would have done differently is actually taken my time. So there were places like Magnetic Island, the Gold Coast, where they only booked me in like 2 nights. This is no digs to Happy Travels. Like I just said, I have 6 weeks. Can you help me out? So they just planned an itinerary based on my time and budget. One thing that I found with doing the East Coast is that I made friends. Oh my God, this kangaroo is so big. Please don't come over here. There was this big daddy kangaroo on this farm where I'm staying, and it is bloody huge. I'll insert a video. One thing you don't want to do in Australia is get in a fight with a kangaroo. Not that it would come over here because, you know, I'm friends with all the kangaroos. Okay, back to what I was saying. Got distracted by the kangaroo. Now I'm really paranoid. Okay, let's continue with the video. One thing I would do differently is I would take my time. So I found when I was doing the East Coast, people would stay like 3, 4, 5 days. And now I'm more of an experienced traveler. I prefer to just book 3 nights in a place and extend if I want to. However, on my East Coast trip, everything was already planned and paid for, so I couldn't really do that. So I would spend a minimum of 3 nights in each place at least, and then extend if I needed to. Now, logistically, that may be a bit difficult if you're on a time or budget constraint, and I get you want to see as much as possible. But I just feel like there's so many amazing places on the East Coast, and I really can't wait to do another East Coast trip. My next regret is not getting a car straight away. So when I moved to Australia, I lived in Sydney for 6 months. I didn't need a car, but then I moved to a place called Wollongong, which is an hour south of Sydney. And to be honest, I really needed a car, but I just didn't want the responsibility. I didn't want to pay for a car. I didn't want a car. I'm a traveler at heart. I was like, that just doesn't feel like freedom to me. But I wish I got one sooner because having a car gave me so much freedom to just explore where I was living. It allowed me to go to any beaches, any national parks, any mountains that I wanted to. And I really made use of that car. So one thing I wish I did, I wish I got a car sooner. If you're in major cities like Melbourne and Sydney, you probably don't need a car. If you're anywhere outside of those areas, you will need a car. Australia is freaking massive. My second regret within the car territory is I wish I'd done my checks right. So I got this, what I thought was an amazing car. You know, it was an old banger. I called her Sydney. I was very attached to the car. I bought it for like $5,000 and I got a mechanic friend to have come with me and they said, yeah, it seems okay. Now, 2 weeks later, it broke down. There was smoke coming from various places. I ended up spending $2,500 repairing the car because the engine had seized, the AC system needed changing, and it has just been a bit of a mess. So going back, I would have probably tried to spend a bit more money on a car, and I would have got a proper inspection. So when you buy a car in Australia, if you're buying it privately, you should take a mechanic with you or get a mechanic to inspect the car. Now this will cost anywhere between $100 to $200. So if you are thinking about buying a car, you can call up your local mechanics and say, hey, mate, I'm looking to buy this car. can you come and see if it's a good one or not? I know nothing about cars. I barely know how to drive one. So I would just have paid a couple of $100 to get it properly inspected before I bought the car, and then I would have known about all these issues. An update on my car situation, I actually had to scrap the car yesterday because I found out the engine has a hole in it and it's going to cost $5,000 to repair. So my $5,000 car turned into a $7,000 car, which I no longer have anymore because it has a hole in the engine. RIP Sydney. So on that one note, I would highly recommend buying a car, but make sure you do your due diligence and get someone to properly inspect the vehicle. My next regret, or thing that I wish I did, I always wanted to come to Australia and do a really, really random job. You know, I've worked in social work for 6 years and now work in social media. And I just wanted to do something random, like go work in the Outback, go work on like the Great Barrier Reef, just something I wouldn't do back in the UK. And that's something I talk to a lot of you guys who are doing work in holiday visas. You guys are always DMing me, and I'm more than happy to chat to you about, you know, helping you out moving here, because it's daunting, it's scary. And that's the one piece of advice I always give people: do something different. Like, I moved to Australia, I landed in Sydney, and I just stayed there. I ended up in a relationship. I ended up getting an apartment and just living a normie kind of life in between all my travels. I don't regret it, but I wish I had taken a few months to do something completely crazy. Next regret is not buying a fly net for my face. So I've been to the Outback a few times and I always make this mistake of not buying a fly net. If it's hot and the sun is out, there is going to be flies trying to get in your nose, in your eyes, in your face. It is absolutely disgusting.
Oh yeah, if you want.
Oh my God. It's in my eye. It's in my eye.
Yeah, we're gonna start.
Oh my God. And I never learned. I feel like I need to just put a fly net in my backpack these days because I just can't handle flies crawling all over my face. And this one sounds really gross. When you're trying to eat and there's flies, you're like battling flies. You're like trying to put food in your gob and there's like flies trying to get in there too. And you're like, this is actually feral. Like, this needs to stop. So one regret, if you come into Australia and if you even think about going to the Outback, get yourself a fly net. My next regret is I regret that I didn't go to Melbourne sooner. I'm not a city person. I'm a bit of a beach babe. Where I live in Wollongong, you know, beaches galore. I have beaches at my footstep. They're some of the most beautiful beaches in the world. So I've thought to myself, I don't really have any interest in going to Melbourne, but I recently just spent 8 days in Melbourne and I absolutely loved it. Out of all the cities in Australia, I think Melbourne has the most soul, the best vegan food, the best coffee, the best culture. It's like nowhere else in Australia in terms of city life. I think Sydney's more beautiful, but Melbourne has the vibe. So I regret that I didn't go there sooner because I actually really loved Melbourne. My next regret is not budgeting extra money for experiences that I really wanted to do. So because I travel so much, I do spend a lot of money on travel. So I have to be on a bit of a budget. Like, I can't just spend all my money on travel because that would be irresponsible. But there's been places that I've been that I've wished I had done some bucket list experiences. One of them is the scenic flight over the Great Barrier Reef. Now, I've been to Cairns 3 times, and each time I go, I'm like, I really want to do that, but it is quite expensive, and I've just spent money on all these other activities. So I regret just actually, it's unlikely that I'm going to go back to these places anytime soon. So really what I should just do is, if I really, really want to do something, budget money for those activities. And you will always say this to yourself as a traveler. You'll say, I'll do it next time I'm here. But realistically, mate, when is the next time that you are going to be in this place in Australia? Just do it then, do it now. You can tick it off your bucket list, and then you will not regret not taking that experience. So my toes are freezing. My next regret is not getting my ducks in a row for my long-term visa. So if you're new around here, I have been in Australia for 2 years. I did 2 years working holiday visas, and my visa ended in March. But because of the new rule changes to UK working holiday visas, we can get 3 years from the 1st of July. I had like a 3-month gap, and I knew it was coming, but it just didn't feel real. So one thing I regret is not getting my paperwork in a row. So back home, I'm a social worker, so I can apply for one of the skilled visas. And I didn't start looking at it until a few months before I had to leave. And then I realized, actually, this is going to take a very long time to sort out this paperwork. So my advice to you, if you are considering staying in Australia for the long term, sort out your visa stuff as soon as possible, whether that is doing your 88 days as soon as possible, whether that is sorting out your skilled visa or your partner visa or whatever visa you're looking for. Just sort it out as soon as possible because time goes quickly in Australia. And what happened to me is I actually had to leave. So I ended up moving to New Zealand for 3 or 4 months because I couldn't stay in Australia and I had to leave, and it was very stressful, and it just was just like a whole big upheaval of, you know, I'm living this dreamy life in Wollongong and I don't really want to leave, but my visa expired, so I had to leave. To give you a little context on a skills assessment visa, so firstly I need to get a skills assessment, and that involved like 6 months. Like I started collecting things in January. I've only just got every document I needed because I needed to get things like employer references from 10 years ago. I needed some documents from my secondary school to prove that I speak English. And there's various other things I needed, and I didn't realize it would take so long. But now I have that paperwork, and then I will apply for that, and then one day I will be able to stay in Australia without worrying about visas. My next regret about my working holiday visa is not being sensible with money. I feel like this is the most chaotic my financial situation has ever been in my life. Like, I've earned really good money in Australia, and then I've just burned it all on travel. And I don't regret that, but I wish I'd been a bit more sensible with my finances, like the whole car debacle. Like, I could have been a bit more sensible. I could have done my due diligence and not wasted extra thousands and thousands of dollars on this stupid car, which I actually miss because I scrapped it yesterday. Like, everyone has a different working holiday visa situation. Mine was, I was sort of living a normal life, but I was going off traveling for like 6 to 8 weeks at a time, which was amazing. But financially, I was just like in this cycle of working loads and then traveling loads and working loads. So I never had that balance. I was either doing like one or the other, and it always just felt really intense. And I don't necessarily regret it because I saw so much amazing stuff last year, but I probably would have been a bit more sensible with my money because, you know, Australia is an expensive country to travel. And this brings me on to my next regret. I wish I saved for a van. Now, one of my new dreams since landing in Australia is I would love to buy a van, maybe even a 4x4, and do a lap of Australia. That is like big goal dream right there. I'm just putting that out into the universe. This will happen one day, I'm telling you. But I wish I was sensible with my money, maybe earn a bit more money and bought a van, because van life in Australia is just the one. All my most amazing trips around Australia have been from traveling around the country in a van with my friends. And it's just so epic because you just have so much freedom to go to the beaches, to the mountains, and yeah, it's just a dream. This brings me on to my last regret of my Australian working holiday visa journey, which is I wish I did it sooner. No, seriously, I just turned 30, and luckily they just recently increased the age to 35 so I can get my 3rd year. However, I didn't start traveling till I was like 25, 26. I wish I did it earlier. Like, if you're watching this and you're like in your late teens, in your early 20s, just do it. Like, seriously, I had a 6-year career, which I don't regret, but I wish I did it sooner. I wish I traveled places like Australia or Asia in between university, because you get like so much time off. So if you're watching this and you're like studying or you are just starting your career, travel as much as possible. Like, seriously, you will never regret traveling, but you will regret not traveling. Does that make sense? Although I have lots of regrets and things that I would have done differently, I have had the most amazing adventures in Australia. You know, I've seen some amazing places in the Outback like Uluru. I've been down to Tasmania. I've been up to the Kimberley region. I've slept out in a swag in the desert. I've seen snakes. I've seen kangaroos. I've seen killer spiders and crocodiles. I've seen loads of crazy shit in Australia, and it's honestly been some of the best years of my life. So if you are even considering a working holiday visa in Australia, just do it. Regardless of all these things that I've talked about in the video, I'm just telling you things that I would do differently to give you some perspective, help you plan and help you understand like what you can expect when you come here, because it's all a learning curve. You know, I've had the most amazing 2 years of my life, and then freaking yesterday I was nearly in tears because freaking Sydney broke down on me and found out she had a hole in the engine. I hope you've learned something in this video. I hope you found it useful. If you have, there is plenty of resources down below. Make sure you hit subscribe. If you've done a working holiday visa, or if you're in Australia, Comment below, is there something you would have done differently? Because I am intrigued and I feel like other people can go look at the comments and see what everyone else is saying. I hope you enjoyed that video. I'm gonna finish my tea and go inside because it's kind of cold, but I was like, this is a cute little place to film this video. So thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you subscribe to watch more videos, and until next time, take care and peace out.